Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Hi, James White once again for Northwest Liberty News, and I'm delighted to be joined today for a very special program. I'm with Matt, NC Scout from brushbeater.store, and I met Matt a couple of years ago. I should say we met online, and we worked on a project that I was working on with Catherine Austin Fitz, and Matt came on for an interview for that and did a fantastic job. It was one of the most, I think, liked episodes that we did, and I'm talking about the Solution Series, and Matt was on that. We had a lot of great guests on there, and certainly Matt was a standout, and we are delighted to have Matt here today on the broadcast to talk about everything he's got going on. He's coming here to Montana. I'm super excited that he's coming to Montana here in April, I believe it is, for a training. And he's a world-class trainer. He's a world-class author as well. His books are always amongst the top 4 or 5, or sometimes, a lot of times, number 1 on Amazon. And I think overall, your communications book, I want to say, is in the top 200 or 250 on the whole Amazon site, which is incredibly impressive. Hard-working guy, just a Americana all the way, patriot. Matt from North Carolina, NC Scout, brushbeater.store. Always great to talk to you, and thanks for being on Northwest Liberty News.
Thanks, brother. And I'm honored by your incredibly kind words. Thank you.
Well deserved. Well deserved. You know, I follow you on Twitter. We follow each other on Twitter, and you're always putting out great stuff as far as like not only merchandise and equipment that you have, but also tips. And you just, I think you kind of like myself have a heart for just kind of waking people up and letting them know that you really don't have to rely on these fake people in suits that apparently are leaders that are going to supply things for us and take care of us. And I think people have fallen into that trap. Guys like you and I try to tell them, they don't end it for you. You need to be in it for you, and you need to get prepared, and you need to get geared up, and you need to get trained, you need to get knowledge. And I think that's what is going to bring us, I believe, to the next level against these people that choose to rule us, is the knowledge. We just got to give people knowledge, and you do a great job of that, Matt, and we appreciate all you've done.
Thank you. And likewise, talking about governmental apparatchiks, however you want to phrase it. Government is organized crime, and that's it, plain and simple. And for people who look at government as being there to help you or whatever, you're going to be a refugee. When you do that, you're essentially a refugee, and you're putting your own survival up into the hands of, and not just your survival, but generations, your follow-on generations. You're putting that in the hands of people who look at you as a product. They look at you as tax income. They look at you as a disposable thing. That once they get your vote, or they get your tax dollars, or they get your income from you, like just like any other parasite out there, that it doesn't really matter what happens to you. And we see this over and over again. Right now, the wildfires in Texas is kind of dominating the news. But East Palestine, Ohio, another really great example of this. Every natural disaster that's out there, obviously wildfires, where you are, Jim, hurricanes for us here in the Southeast, is, big deal. And we're reminded of this over and over again of, it doesn't mean you should look at them necessarily with hostile intent, but just know that, at the federal governmental level, they're not there to help you. They're there to keep you complicit.
And I think I figured out the scam here, Matt. I'm probably not the first one to figure it out, but you got brought up when you hear about gun control and about them confiscating guns, and I said they're never going to do that. The reason why? Both sides raise so much money on the gun control debate. Republican comes out and says we're going to pass lax gun laws here in this state. Democrats immediately come out and raise money on it. A Democrat comes out and says we're going to kill some gun laws in this state. Republicans come out and they immediately raise money on it. And I think I'm starting to think that everything is like that. It's a fake opposition. It's a con. I don't even know how else to put it. It's a con. The whole thing.
Well, a perfect example of that, and a big shout out to Firearms Policy Coalition, or FPC. For anybody that's not following them or donating some money to them, you really need to, because they're racking up win after win after win in court right now at the federal level. And it takes a lot of money and a lot of stones to be able to do that. So when you look at them and all the victories that they're having, compared to, let's say, other legacy Second Amendment organizations and what they haven't done, all, and I'm not trying to necessarily throw anybody under the bus, because other organizations have done a lot of good over the years too, but there's one in particular that is pretty well known now for a whole lot of corruption that's coming out to light. Things that we knew for a long time, a lot of other people did as well at the grassroots, and said, well, but still, that's the best we got. Well, and here's the thing, you know, what were they doing all these years that didn't work that Firearms Policy Coalition is doing now? And they are getting the job done. It's and they're not out there campaigning. I don't get a phone call from FPC every other week
Or,
like I
or
did
27 pieces of mail a month asking for donations, and I'm thinking to myself, hey,
exactly.
let me give you a clue. Stop sending out so many mailers, and you would have enough money to pay for some of these things. I don't need 12
Right,
attempts to raise money from me a month. I mean,
right.
it's outrageous. Anyway, I used to interview Larry Pratt for the longest time, and that's not who we're talking about, Gun Owners of America. But I think he
No,
was just,
GOA is another great
yeah,
organization.
yeah. I interviewed Larry for many
Larry's
times. Good
yeah,
guy, and his son took
yep,
over. I think Eric is his name. Maybe Eric Pratt is his son, and I haven't had a chance to interview him yet. But I interviewed his father lots of times, and I always had great interviews with Larry Pratt. I think he's a patriot. I think he's a patriot for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's excellent, and I'd like to be able to get some after the recording here. Send me over that information for that organization, and I'll put it in an
Yeah.
article that we put out there.
FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition,
FPC.org. This that easy?
FPC.org.
Okay, folks.
They
FPC.org.
are, I tell you what, like we can look at the legal profession, and a lot of people do this. They look at the legal profession as, lawyers. There's so many lawyers out there that are liberals. I mean, well, that is true, and your law schools out there do lean very strong in the left, but there's a lot of great lawyers out there too that are really taking up the torch for freedom, and FPC is doing that. So, shameless shout out to them.
No, that's
I don't
fine.
get anything out of that. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I do give them money, and I absolutely love them. They are win. It's for them. It's legal win after legal win after legal win in federal court, and in all of the districts, by the way, that lean left. Like most recent victory for the folks out in California, they're the ones who got the magazine ban overturned. FEC is the one that
Is
did that.
that right?
That's right. That's them.
Wow,
They're the
man.
ones that they're taking the fight up, and it's just really incredible. You love to see it.
Well, and that's the thing, Matt. We outnumber these scoundrels by tens of thousands to one. And all we have to do, as I say on my broadcast regularly, we don't got to break out the AR 15s. We don't got to break out the bicycle chains, the baseball bats. We don't even have to get violent. Now, that's always in a defensive measure if we are being attacked. That's always, of course, an option for not just us, but for anybody. But we don't have to offensively do anything. All we have to do is come together collectively and say, we're not going to put up with it anymore. They can't rule an unruly population. If we just say, look what they're doing overseas. That's why you don't see all these protests in France and Germany and all. That's why we don't see them here on this news, because they don't want to give anybody here any ideas, because they know if it happened in America, it's lights out for these scoundrels. Matt?
Well, yeah, look at Brussels. Look at the Netherlands. The farmers have absolutely had enough. They're literally digging up the roads. They're using their
I know,
their,
that
their
was awesome.
tractors and say, hey,
That's
we're going
good.
to destroy this stuff. It's civil disobedience on one hand, in the most effective way possible. but it's also a precursor to just mass non-compliance and collective action. Collect to borrow a term from the left is it's collective direct action to say we're not putting up with this anymore. In Europe, you're seeing the most draconian methods. First, it was taxes on diesel fuel, just massive taxes because they sell it by the liter, not by the gallon there. And you had massive taxes. You had a value added tax on that. You had fuel taxes. They just taxing these guys out of business. Then they for the farmers that could survive that, then they began eliminating their ability to purchase fertilizer, saying, oh, this is so harmful for the environment, this is toxic, and all this stuff, right? You can't get fertilizers. What this all is it's the outcome of the war on individualized agriculture. We're seeing that here in the United States
Yeah,
too.
that
It's
farmer, that
it's
organic
happening.
farmer, got raided here just a couple of days ago, right?
Right. It's happening at a lower rate here in the United States because we have the means to fight back very effectively and quickly. And there are a lot of, for as much criticism as corporate ag gets in a lot of circles, and I'm not saying that that's not valid. At the same time, corporate ag is also a good stalwart against this because they have as much power as they do, particularly in the Midwest. They can say, no, we're not going for this.
That's right.
You're going to eliminate our ability to buy fertilizer. We're not going for this.
That's right.
And so for a lot of reasons, it's more difficult to implement those things in the United States. But as the powers that be, the financial powers that are in the world, the transnational elements to this, Bill Gates is a good example. By them buying up the farmland and buying up these companies individually, that's how they're fighting it. And again, that's kind of getting into a big macro level of what's happening here.
Well, we're going to talk
But
about we want to
yeah,
we want to be able to, like, so we don't know what's going to happen, what the future is going to hold. There may be a grid down situation. There's talk of it. Who knows? But one of the most important things to have in place, and really whether it's grid down or not grid down, is communications.
yep.
That is, when you hear, if you listened back, if those people that are old enough can harken back to the Iraq War, if you remember the first Gulf War, I think in Iraq, I saw the first reports come out in the news, and what's the first thing they did? They struck the communications towers and all the communications building, and they wiped them all out. That's almost the first move in a war, is to take out the communications of the other side, which should lend that should lend credence to the fact how vital and important communications is, because again, that's the first target they go after. Talk, if you can, just an overview, Matt. Let's do a 30,000-foot view of communications, and then we can get down into the minutia. I can bring up the brush beater store here on the screen.
Oh yeah.
You won't see it, but the folks that are watching will, and then we can go and talk about any of the items that you want. But give us an overall view of communications. Of course, we're involved in communications right now, you and I, so people
Right.
know generally what that means. But there's going to be a time when this type of communication ain't going to be able to, if it goes that way, we're not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to Zoom. We're not going to be able to do any of that
Right.
stuff. We're going to have alternative communication methods if you and I are going to communicate. I'll turn it over to you and give us the overall view, and then we'll
So
dig down.
there are three overarching ways. Let's draw a mental Venn diagram for ourselves here. There are three overarching needs for communications. And this, I think, helps. This concept helps conceptualize communications requirements for people, because it's the deep end of the pool. A lot of times when folks are new to this, what they really want is a replacement for a cell phone, because our cell phones have really become kind of a safety blanket for us.
That's true.
And what people don't realize is that cell phones they require a massive amount of infrastructure just to be able to function. And the more complex they become, the more the bandwidth, with 5G now and like, wherever we're going to go from there, it requires a massive amount of infrastructure to make this stuff work. The more pieces of infrastructure you have, the more points of failure you're going to have.
The
Right?
more vulnerable that method of communication
Exactly.
is. Right.
Exactly. So with that said, we have three overarching communications requirements that different people, with different ideas behind them kind of fall into. The first one is sustainment communications. Sustainment communications are for like your radio stations, television stations, things that are part of that local infrastructure, law enforcement communications, emergency service, commo, anything that provides sustainment for a place, like day to day stuff. Telephone certainly fits into the mix, right? So if you're coming to the survival communications mindset of, I need to have a way to quote unquote communicate off the grid, this is where each of those pieces are going to fall into the mix. Now, for most people out there, you can really achieve that sustainment communications by first sitting down and writing out what is it that I want to do, what goal is it that I need to accomplish. I want to have a way to talk to the neighbors, maybe the next town over, right? So, how do we accomplish that? And then what pieces of gear fit those needs? Because a lot of people just want to, run out and buy all the things before they figure out what the need necessarily is, and that can be problematic,
Let me ask you
right?
this: so they want the consumers to buy these. You've seen these handheld radios that say it goes 18 miles or 27 miles. I gotta believe if you're standing on the highest peak mountain where you're at, and I'm standing on the highest peak mountain where I'm at, I may get 20 miles on that. But generally speaking, for like urban type living and stuff, the communication that we want to
Right.
do, those are not an accurate indication of actually how many miles it goes. Right? Don't be fooled by that.
Right. And with sustainment communications, a lot of people think in terms of range. And that's what that is. How far does this cover? Folks, those little FRS radios that you get at Walmart or Cabela's or wherever, the blister pack, what we call blister pack stuff, they're not going to do that. The reason that they advertise those that way and they can get away with it is on the GMRS channels or General Mobile Radio Service. You could use them in conjunction with a repeater, which would give you that range, but you have to use it in conjunction with a repeater. And that requires a license in order to do so. So, it's a misnomer. And nobody serious is really using that stuff or advocating it. But here's a big leg up. So GMRS. All right, we mentioned FRS, GMRS, FRS and GMRS. FRS, Family Radio Service, GMRS, General Mobile Radio Service. They occupy the same frequency space. GMRS is the higher powered big brother of FRS. FRS does not require a license. GMRS does, but it covers a group of people. This is in the UHF or ultra high frequency range. So it's not ideal for use in rural environments, although it's not terrible, but it's not perfect for that. I want to turn your attention to another lesser known frequency range that's in VHF, or very high frequency, that works quite well, and that's called MERS, multi-use radio service. This has typically been advertised in the past. The Dakota Alert, driveway alarms and stuff uses frequency range. But you can utilize this in the 151 megahertz to 154 megahertz. License free, 5 channels, works extremely well in rural environments. I typically use that for most things day to day. Your Baofeng radios. Yep, Baofeng radios. Um, they function on that frequency range as well as FRS and GMRS.
They're a marvel.
Programs in
Baofengs
there.
are a marvel of communications. I mean, they really are. It's whoever built those was really smart.
Well, it's an inexpensive way to get into this with a whole lot of
Yeah, that's
capability.
right.
All right, a whole lot of capability. So I'm going to take you through basically how to take one of those handhelds, right? You take a small Baofeng handheld, take the stock antenna off of it, right? This is how you're going to maximize your capability. Everything that I sell in the store has a use case to it. It's stuff that we use in class. Um, fit it with a BNC adapter, Bravo November Charlie. You're going to have a SMA antenna port on top of that radio, right? That bow thing. We're going to switch that to a BNC. I've got coax cable that I sell. Hook that up to the coax cable. In the book, The Gorilla's Guide to Baofeng Radio, I've got step by step instructions on how to build simple antennas that you can hoist into trees, you can get some elevation with. I explain why you'd want to do that, and what that's going to do is maximize your range. All right. So let's say, I'm on MERS, which is license free, completely license free, wide open. You don't have to worry about filing any paperwork anywhere, like getting your name out there, any of that stuff, right? And I have all of that listed in the book, Gorilla's Guide to Baofeng Radio. You build that antenna for it, get that sucker hoisted up in a tree, have it connected to that radio, and bam, you all of a sudden have communications that will go many miles. All right, many, many miles. We do this in class in the RTO course. And one of the things I do in class is once the students build those antennas, we hoist them up, get them on the air, and then I have a couple of them drive around and see how much distance we get. On average, and I live in pretty hilly terrain here in North Carolina, right? On average, we get about 8 miles or so peer to peer.
That's nice.
And if we're up in the mountains where I've done class in the past, we're going to be out in Big Fork at the end of April. We get out there in the mountains. Typically, we're going to go significantly further.
Wow.
In Wyoming, I think the furthest distance we got out there was peer to peer was right around 20 miles. And then when we built directional antennas later on in the course, we got 38 miles and
Wow.
probably could have got significantly further.
Wow.
But, hey, you're talking sustainment communications. I want to be able to communicate with like the next town
That's
over.
huge. 38 miles is huge in like grid down communications. And folks, you can
Yeah.
see I was just on the website here on brushbeater.store in the communications section. As you see, Matt has pages and pages and pages of communication equipment on the store there. And again, you can go brushbeater.store. Real easy, brushbeater.store, and you can see it right below Matt's name there as well. And Matt, you do have wow, and not to mention your book. Talk a little bit about your book. I mean, I know you don't like to brag on yourself, but you have several radio manuals and books. I guess you could say books, manuals that are on
Yep.
Amazon, and I think, if I remember correctly, weren't a couple of them on the number one seller list for their field or something? For maybe still
Yeah.
are. So tell us about that. I mean, it's not
So
just merchandise. You got a brain full of information there. You got one of those. You're one of those big brain guys that's got all that stuff in his head, and you put them
thank
in
you.
books.
So the Gorilla's Guide to Baofeng Radio published it on 2 December 2022. It's total shock to me. It instantly went to number one. It has consistently stayed in Amazon's top 1,000 for over a year now. I think it's in the top 500. It stays up there. It's just been insane. The incredible response to it, but I wrote that book originally. I was contacted to write a field manual for ground pounders, um, because we're seeing a lot of Baofeng radios that are being uh, cheap equipment, cheap common off the shelf equipment that's being proliferated all around the world in contested environments. I've got several good friends who, retired special operators, guys that are in the contracting world. They do a lot of work in Africa, NGOs that do a lot of work in Africa, that have come across Baofengs, and that's all that's out there. And Ukraine, how that's manifested, the cheap equipment that's proliferated on the battlefield there. So I was tasked with writing a field manual on how to use this by a good friend of mine, and said, hey, have you thought about that? Because you've got kind of a big following in this genre, and so I did, and wrote it in a way that 11 Bravos infantrymen, my former profession, that we would be able to take and follow step by step in creating not just communication at that sustainment level, but the other two categories of that Venn diagram I was talking about: the tactical communications and sustainment, or sustainment was the first one, clandestine communications. So working with data bursts, encrypted transmissions. How do you do that? Again, with common off the shelf equipment, and it's just an instruction manual, step by step, assuming that you know nothing. Okay, you have never touched a radio before. You've never, you don't know anything about it. Here's how you go step by step by step in building this capability to suit each of those needs, from sustainment communications to tactical communications. Tactical being that inter team, inter squad fire and movement kind of thing. All the trigger pullers on YouTube and Rumble. They get their popular channel. They shoot fast, right? All of that stuff, right? How do you do that? Because there are some concerns when you have a analog only radio. There's no what we call native encryption to it. There's no built-in digital encryption. There's some concerns there. You don't want to be blasting out to the world what you're doing. So I take you through how to build that communication security in that role, and then in the clandestine realm, how to encrypt what you're doing, first via trigrams and then one-time pad. And this is stuff that's nothing new to the clandestine world. Special operators over the years have been doing all this stuff, spies, and all of this. We've been doing these things for generations now. Since World War II, moving forward into the Cold War, we've been doing this stuff, and that takes you step by step to how to do that. So you end up with a bulletproof communications capability for very little money. That's in class, I take you through step by step how to do that, and you're doing all of it. And it really opens a lot of people's eyes. It's not a book about ham radio, even though amateur radio is a big part of that. I am a ham. I'm an amateur extra myself, and but that is a different thing. And I'm not criticizing that world at all. Again, as a amateur extra, as a VE, I've given people the ham radio tests and everything, and I think that's a big step up for a lot of folks to get into that world. But it has a use case, and that book covers a completely different one. You're in a contested environment. You're in a unconventional warfare environment. You're in that grid down environment. And there, all of those needs that we lay out in the book, this is how you meet all of those. This is how you do it. The other book that I have out there, The Girl's Guide to Signals Intelligence, which is another big hit, kind of surprising, is the other side of the coin. How do you collect the stuff that the other side is doing, and then what do you do with it, and how do you do that with common off-the-shelf equipment? And I think that one is a real eye-opener, because when we talk SIGINT, or signals intelligence, for a lot of people, they think of buying a police scanner, and that's it. And like that has a role, but there's all this other stuff out there that actually lends itself to much better capability.
And folks, as you can see, because I've been on the website here while Matt's been talking, you can get those 3 items for just about $100. You can get a Baofeng, you can get his Baofeng instruction manual, I guess you'd say, it's his operating manual, and then the Guerrilla's Guide to Signal Intelligence, what I just had up here. For all 3 of those items right there, it's just around $100. I mean, folks, I can't believe, how many people go out to dinner these days for family of 4? That's $100 meal right there. Skip a meal with your family and get educated. And again, that goes back to kind of what I said before. We lack knowledge. We lack knowledge, I think. I think we're pretty we have a lot of ingenuity as, Americans, and we've overcome a lot. But I don't think that people just they lack knowledge. And I think, and sadly, Matt, they depend upon others to take care of it for them. Well, somebody will take care of that when that time comes. Well, surely there's somebody out there that's ready for this, and they're gonna. And I think that we kind of fall back into that waiting for somebody else to do something for us type of a mentality because we've been brought up that way. And what this does, this empowers people to take it into their own hands, which. Once you learn this, they can't take it away from you. That's one thing about knowledge. Once you learn it and you learn how to do it, doesn't matter. They can't censor your brain yet. I think Elon Musk wants to try to do that, but that's another call together.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
knowledge is power.
That's the mark of the beast.
Yeah, man.
You know,
We got to stay away from the Neuralink and all that stuff. I don't like that at all. At all.
Not to go down that rabbit hole,
right,
but that in my mind, as a Christian and as somebody who is very deep in his faith, that's the mark of the beast.
It's the end of humanity if that occurs. I mean, what's because they just hit a button and turn you off. They don't like what you're saying. Okay, well let's just put him asleep. He's
right.
done.
They're already doing that with cars. I mean, we've been doing that. I would say that we've been doing this with vehicles for a long time, OnStar and GM and, all of the other brands that have their versions of it. When our cars have become just a big router, and they are satellite controlled and everything, all the controls in your vehicle are drive by wire. Well, they can just shut your vehicle down and everything.
Personal tracking device, a personal tracking device right there. I mean, I don't leave home without it. You don't either, probably.
No, and well, sometimes I do.
I'm sure.
And that's a game that people should play is to just
leave your phone behind.
Get your phone for a little while. Break that tether cord and just go outside. Go to go to a park somewhere and get lost for a little while. Do something like that. But our vehicles have kill switches, and what's crazy to me is that they want to bring that into humanity.
Yeah.
They want to, and it's George Orwell at that point. We've reached a level of control, of governmental control, that Orwell would be shocked, I think, quite frankly, because he never could have envisioned things. I mean, the first chapter of 1984 with Winston Smith putting the pebble of sand on his notebook to see if his notebook was read. Your notebook is your mind now, and if they want to have a means of getting into that, it's just to me it's unfathomable.
Well, we're gonna switch over here and talk, if we can, about what kind of things people can expect in the training. But before we do, I want to harken you back. You probably remember this. One of the best technologies that I think that I really enjoyed, as far as communications are concerned. Do you remember the Nextel phones where they had that direct connect button where you could hit that? If I wanted to talk to you, I just hit a button and I could speak directly to you. It's like it. I think they cached that technology because they realized that they couldn't control it. They realized that people could, set up secretive meetings, or they could, have clandestine type operations without them being able to detect it. The technology is out there for me and you to hit a button like that and directly connect. Now, it has to go through, I'm sure, satellites and towers and everything like that. But do you remember those? First of all, you remember those Nextel phones, and why do you think they because that was a great communication device? Why do you think they waxed them? You think probably because of what I said? Do you think there's another reason?
So it still exists. It just exists in it exists in a different form. And what you have to do, there are 4G walkie-talkies that are out there that you get a SIM card for. And you have to buy a SIM card, so you got to get a service plan. You can do this through Walmart, believe it or not. I'm not.
No kidding. I didn't know that. Do you teach that how to do that in your course? That's something I never heard of.
I don't cover it because for me it's kind of like, let's get away from cell phones because that the network is fragile. But the technology does exist. There are little handhelds, of course, they're made in China, like everything.
Shocker.
But you get a service plan for each one of them, and I know you probably have a lot of elk hunters in your
Oh yeah.
audience. Like my audience here on the East Coast, particularly in North Carolina. I live in a county where in North Carolina where we have more deer than we have people,
Oh,
which is nice.
at whitetail.
Uh, oh yeah, whitetail. But we use game cameras for everything. You're putting out your food plots and you got your salt licks and all that, and put a game camera out there. Well, we typically what we'll do, and something that I do with my game cameras, is I've got another service plan that I get through Straight Talk at Walmart. Straight Talk is kind of one of their in-house phone and data plans that you can get. And you can buy a SIM card. You put it in that game camera, and it'll transmit to your phone whenever it gets tripped. And so you put the
Nice.
app for that game camera on your phone. I mean, this isn't anything new for probably elk hunters in your audience, and guys that spend a lot of time outdoors. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, you can do the same thing with it's a 4G radio that you can get, and they're like this big, tiny little suckers. And you're getting a SIM card for that you get with a service plan. You put it in there as long as it's compatible with it. And all of them break down into one of two camps. You'll either have Verizon or AT&T, and you have to figure out which one it works for, and that can kind of be a pain in the butt. But you have to look, CDMA and which version of CDMA it is. CDMA stands for cellular division multipath access. I actually talk about this in the signals intelligence book, how to exploit that, because there are a lot of ways you can do it with free software. And we cover this in the signals intelligence course, which I'll be running in Big Fork. But
And
that
when's the
free
date? And what's the
software,
dates for that? What's the dates for that? Just while we're plugging it,
let me
what
pull
you
it up. It's the
training courses? Here I am. I'm at training courses. Let's see here. We're looking for North Carolina. Let me see here. Where is the Big Fork one here?
so
Montana,
the
right
SIGINT
there.
course,
Got it.
RTO course in Montana
There
out
it
in
is.
Big Fork is going to be the 26th
Yep.
through the 28th
That's right there on the screen,
of
folks.
April. And then SIGINT course is 29 April through the 1st of May. But yeah, so anyway, getting back to the little 4G radios, and I don't sell them mainly because you know people kind of need to get away from the cell phone
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but for like let's say not grid down, cell phone networks are up and everything. That is a way to have long distance communications with point to point that is sidestepping a lot of the surveillance that's out there. I'm not going to say that it can't be listened to, because I'm sure there is. For every move, there's a counter move,
Yeah.
right? It's playing chess, but it is a way to create a network when times are good. When we talk VHF, UHF, the Baofeng stuff, or even CB, I'm a big fan of CB. CB
Yeah.
radio, I think that's back in a huge way. Um, these are really peer to peer in a very local sense, within that 30-mile bubble that we were talking about. But, going beyond that, in the time that we have cell phone networks
Yeah.
and all of that, making use of it, that is a way to do it. It absolutely is. Just know one more thing to know about cell phones, and utilizing like those old school Nextel style uh, push to talk cell phone based walkie talkie systems, is that they can very easily be tracked
Yeah.
as well. You're constantly cell phones and those types of radios. Mesh networking is another one. I roll my eyes pretty hard whenever I hear mesh networking, because that's people make of it something that it is absolutely not. But it is a beacon, and it is constantly pinging
That's right.
another node because it is a node. That's why
Yep.
cell phones is called cellular phones,
Yep.
because they're nodes that create a cellularized network, a constellation of things, and it requires um, constant linking with another node in order for it to work. And if it isn't doing that, it's going to constantly be sending out that beacon unless you can physically remove the battery so that it's not transmitting anymore. But once you do that, what's the point? You're not communicating anymore at that point.
Yeah,
So
and we'll talk about
you know,
Can we talk about the Faraday bag if we can, in a minute?
oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so
So
I want to
Faraday
follow.
bag.
Let me follow really quick to the point. Tucker Carlson, if you guys remember Tucker Carlson, just to let people know, he was using Signal, and they cracked his signal, and they knew that he admitted that they said no one was supposed to know that I was interviewing Vladimir Putin. They communicated via Signal. The feds cracked his signal and found out he was going there. I just wanted to put a bow on that and let people know. Don't be fooled by these software communication programs that say that they're secure, because that was proven by Tucker Carlson that they're not. They got into Signal. So I just wanted to follow up with that, and sorry to interrupt you,
Oh yeah.
but then we can talk about
No,
Faraday
you're fine.
bags and keep going.
Yeah, so about that, I'll comment real quick. Signal's not secure, right? They with them. First of all, there was a period of time where Signal, because it constantly does updates, there was a gap in time of about a month where they claimed that they had done an update, and the details of the quote unquote open sourceness of it were not disclosed. If you look at where Signal is hosted, because there is everything goes to its server and then back out. Um, it's hosted by Amazon Web Services.
Really? I didn't
So,
know that.
yep.
I thought it was like in Denmark or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. AWS hosts them.
Oh boy.
Um,
Jeez. That's
yeah,
all you got to
there's
say.
there's it and oh, it's end to end encrypted. Okay, so what? That's really not telling me anything. You're speaking in qualitative terms, not quantitative terms, which is instantly a red flag. There's a lot of better messaging apps out there, and none of them are quote unquote completely secure. Okay, none of them are going to be. That's just a complete misnomer. Don't assume that. All
Thank you
right,
for that.
everything is about an onion, peeling layers of the
Yeah.
onion. How many layers of the onion do you want? Putting up smoke screen and smoke screen after smoke screen. One that well, I would say there are a few that are out there that are really good that I think people need to look into, and you need to compartmentalize your contacts. Don't get into the habit of, well, this is the only thing we're ever going to do, and this is just our only means. It's a PACE plan, okay? Primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. It's a communications principle. It's a patrol planning principle. It's a lifestyle principle that we apply to everything. It's I cover it in the book. It's part of an SOI, or Signals Operating Instructions, right? The communications plan. But some of the apps that are out there that are really good, that are much lesser known, Session is one of them that does a lot of really good stuff, and it mitigates a lot of the metadata that's put out there. So for Signal, for example, you got to register that with your phone number. Well, all right, your phone number has a mountain of metadata. Your phone number may as well be your social security number in this day and age.
It's true.
So
It's true.
you kind of don't be so quick to give the world your phone number out there, because they can do a lot with it.
That's right.
And from your phone number, somebody with a particular skill set can find your IMEI and IMSI numbers, and then from there they can do all sorts of fun
Can
stuff.
they clone you? Can they
Can
clone your phone almost and make calls in your
what
name and kind of like?
they can do that. I can use a program called Maltego, which there is a free version of that's kind of limited. There's a paid for version of it that's out there, and I can actually map your patterns of life with it remotely,
What?
because I can
Wait.
just take your
What?
yeah, I can take your IMEI. There's videos of this on YouTube. The developer is a South African guy, a company called Paterva that came up with it. He's got videos, instruction videos on how to do it. So you just look up using Maltego to track phones with your phone number. I can track your patterns of life, where you've been. I can do it with Twitter, for example, or X with the Twitter app. If somebody doesn't have their security settings completely correct, I can track where they've accessed the internet. I can literally map out where
Uh,
you've been for any particular period of
Really?
time,
Is that only on
figure out your pattern
smartphones,
of
or if you
life.
have one of those flip phones, can they still do it with the flip? I mean, if that, is that what
Yeah,
we have to do? Do we have to go back to the primitive phones if we want to not be tracked, or
you can
even
do it
those
with a
are
flip
tracked
phone.
too?
You can do it with a flip phone too.
Is that right? So there's no
Anything with
escape.
a phone number.
So
Yep. Yep.
payphones essentially are the only answer to this.
Which how many payphones are still out there?
Hardly any more. There's
Not
hardly
many.
any. Hardly any.
Yeah, it's so right with Signal, you're not really gaining anything by using it. I kind of look at it. I kind of look at Signal as white side communications. When you're talking clandestine, we
Yeah.
have white, red, and black. Black side is I absolutely don't want anybody knowing that I'm talking to you. It's not just masking what we're saying; it's the fact that I don't want anybody to do a relationship map between you and I don't
Right.
want any connection between us. Red side is they know that we're talking to one another. We're smoke screening what we're saying. White side communications, they know we're talking to one another and we're being surveilled. Right? We know that we're being
So that's no
surveilled.
security at all. White side is absolutely no security at all.
Right.
That's what most
And
people use, and most people are on the white side, right? 99% of the
that's right.
population.
And so, Signal, I consider white side communications. Everybody knows I'm talking to this person. There's a relation map between us. It's probably being monitored, whatever. If we're going to assume anything, we assume the worst.
That's
And,
right.
there you go. So it's shifting gears a little bit. Session is a really good one. I'm a big fan of Session for a lot of reasons. It masks your metadata. I can use it through a Wi-Fi connection. So let's say, I set up a tablet, a Wi-Fi only tablet, one that, I didn't get from the cell phone store. I bought, a cheap one from Walmart or, wherever. It's Wi-Fi only. It doesn't take a SIM card or any of that stuff. Got to be clear on that because some people
That's
are
right.
like, yeah, I got this tablet from Verizon. And it's like,
It's a
yeah,
4G tablet.
that's
Well, you've just
you
ruined
you
it.
got a big cell phone is
Yeah,
what you got.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, but you can sideload, meaning installing these programs, these messaging apps on to a tablet without Google knowing it. You can get the APK file, putting it on there. For my iPhone folks, my Apple people, sorry. Apple's got the keys to all the kingdom stuff, by the way, of your device. You don't have any security from Apple proper, which means that you don't have any security from Big Brother, by the way.
So you're saying
That's
don't use Apple? I mean, you're not. You don't. Let's say it this way:
no,
you don't use Apple products.
no,
Is that accurate? Okay.
no.
Okay.
No, the quality of the products are great and probably the best out there, and um that's what propels their sales and has over the years is because they build great stuff.
Sure.
But the software in and of itself, for all that convenience and durability and everything that they are known for, um, the security on the back end for the end user is not there. They have all the keys to the kingdom because it's a closed source system. But if you are looking for more security out of a mobile device, my friend Kay from Combat Studies Group,
Okay.
who's out in your neck of the woods,
Oh,
he big shout out to him. He's a close personal friend of mine, devout Christian, incredible guy. He actually builds a cell phone for our community that is very secure, very rugged. I'm actually using one. It's my daily driver for using one, and we've done podcasts on that, and his course, the Ground Rod course, addresses all of this in depth. It's kind of outside of the scope of what I do, but for him, this is this is his bread and butter, and can't say enough good things about my buddy
I'd
Case.
like
He's
to
big.
connect with him. I'd like to connect with him after the broadcast. If you give me a
Oh, I
connection,
got you. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I got you, and he would he'd love to be on with you.
Yeah.
But Session is a good messaging app. Briar is another really good one. Briar allows us to have a peer-to-peer network via Bluetooth so
Oh,
that we sidestep any sort of online data
nice. I
whatsoever.
like that.
Yep. So if you have Bluetooth capability peer to peer, let's say we're doing urban surveillance on a target,
Mm-hmm.
and we can connect via Bluetooth, and now we have a network with one another that we're linked up, because we're not going to be more than a thousand meters apart when we're doing urban surveillance, and
Sure.
Bluetooth works very well in urban environments in that role. So Briar is a real good option. Again, very little data, almost no metadata is being put out on you, and we could use this peer to peer. You can use it via Wi-Fi, so there's no cellular data that's being put out there. So this is another really good option. And I've got tablets that are configured for this purpose and this purpose alone. And so, like we were talking about those little, like the old school Nextel
Yeah. Direct
things,
connect stuff. Yeah.
little 4G radios. Like I can literally go to any Wi-Fi connection that's open. So say like I go to like McDonald's or Starbucks or something, right? Where they have an open Wi-Fi connection. A lot of places do, and you can. There's a technique called war driving, where you literally are going around looking for open Wi-Fi connections, and I can get on that, get into that network, and then send you a message via that app, or in the form of a session, I can actually call you on that app too, because it's voice over internet protocol or VoIP
Yeah. Yeah.
calling, and we can have a phone conversation or a video conversation, just like we're doing right now, completely encrypted, and it is mitigating. I'm not saying that it couldn't have a way of getting into it, but what I am saying is that there are more layers to the onion that somebody surveilling you would have to go through in order to get those
So it's like
messages.
having the club on your car. Now, a good thief could get in with the club and they could take your car if they really wanted to, but they're just going to move on because it's not going to be so
Right.
hard to get into that one, right? It's kind of almost what you're
Exactly.
saying. It's just basically a deterrent for people that are, that aren't really that committed. I mean,
Exactly.
if they're committed, forget about it. It doesn't really matter. They're going to get your stuff
Right.
anyway, right? So
Right.
let's talk if we can here. We're just coming. Believe it or not, I can't believe the hour's almost up. Let's talk about the training, specifically the training that you have here in Big Fork. You talked about you're gonna be doing. I think the radio telephone operator course. This is coming, I think, at the end of March or beginning of April, perhaps. So let's talk
End of
about that.
April.
End of April. What do
End of
people?
April.
What can people expect when they go to the training? They have to get hotel rooms, I'm sure, ahead of time. Is food provided? Is it a all day course? Do they go somewhere and stay there the whole day?
So
Go ahead, tell us
yeah.
about it.
So radio telephone operators course, as far as accommodations go, Big Fork is not the biggest place in the world. Um, so Kalispell's not that far away. You might want to look into that. It is going to be at a very large campsite though. So, camping will be available. They've got running water, they got bathrooms, all that fun stuff. So the infrastructure is certainly going to be there. Food's of course on you. I'm not a caterer, and I'm doing good to be able
I'm
to cook
not a
for myself.
caterer.
Yeah, I'm not a caterer.
I like that.
I'm there to teach you about communications. But what you can expect is first of all, um, I assume you don't know anything, and we build up from there. And we go through first the the why and then the how. So we begin small scale and work our way up. Communications planning is a huge part of it, and in building that capability. So one thing that I do in class is I tell people that there's really no set packing list other than bringing a notebook, comfortable clothes that are suitable for the environment. Because you will be outdoors for a little while. You'll be indoors too, and it's gonna be comfy, but you will be outdoors for a little bit of the course, and be ready to learn. And so, what we do is, uh, a lot about communications planning. You bring the equipment that you have, right? Whatever it is you have, ranging from nothing to I have guys who, they've been hams for 40 years that are bringing like literally their whole ham shack in there. And, I've had broadcast engineers and I always get electrical engineers and guys that, are deep, deep into the radio. Like they've forgotten more than I'm ever going to know.
Yeah.
Right. But they're coming to class because they're getting that trigger time because we all have a shelf life and, our knowledge always has a shelf life. But, we start with communications planning, and that works into looking around the room at the equipment that everybody brings in there because we have to make each of these pieces of equipment intersect somewhere to create actual communications capability.
Right.
And that's a way to look at it that I don't think enough people see it in that manner because we think of ham radio and license free and CB and all this stuff is like mutually exclusive from one another when in fact they all intersect somewhere to create that capability. So how do we do that? And that's the way that we approach it. Then we go from there on setting that up, implementing our communications plan, building improvised antennas. You're going to be building a bunch of antennas in class. You're going to learn antenna theory. That's a big takeaway from the course that you can build antennas out of almost anything, and we do it. That's the biggest thing is I don't just explain, hey, we're going to do this and I'm going to do it in front of you and just trust me, bro. You're actually building it and you're using your equipment with it on the air with improvised materials, stuff that you can get from Murdoch's, Tractor Supply, ag supply, like, whatever farm and feed store you're going to. 'Cause that's where I spend a lot of my time and money. And so we get our antenna material from there. I provide that for you in class. We build those antennas, we get on the air, we build that capability. Signals intelligence course, the other side of the coin, right? So 3 more days of all the things you do in the RTO course. You're doing the reverse of it in the SIGINT course. You're learning how to exploit all of those things.
We're just coming out of we just got to keep this under an hour for consideration purposes here, Matt. Yeah. So we're really great to have you on. We're going to have you on again before the course. You can go to brushbeater.store, and I didn't really even visit the brushbeater.org website as well, but that is also another website here. Let me pop it up real quick. You can go there and find out. That's really, you can see the blogs that Matt's created. You get links to all the books and everything like that over on brushbeater.org or brushbeater.store. We're delighted to have you join us today, Matt, NC Scout from North Carolina, and we'll have Matt on again. We're looking so forward to having you come to Big Fork and check all that out on brushbeater.store. Matt, thanks again for being here. It was great having you. Looking forward to having you come to Montana. Until next time, my friend. You're welcome. Until next time, this is James White for Northwest Liberty News, saying bye now.